You are listening to the Hodges Huddle, where we discuss all things in the wide world of sports. Here's your KLSU Sports team.
Welcome into the Hodges Huddle. I'm your host, Andre Champagne, and today I'm joined by Pushin' P, Poggi over here, Michael Poggi. We've got the great Jaden Smith behind the desk today. He's producing. And then a really good friend of mine joining. We got John Eads from WAFB. Thanks for coming, first of all, on your off day. This is nothing new. I would know this because I see you're always doing work, it feels like. So thank you for joining, even on your off day.
Appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Yeah,
nice setup y'all got here.
Yeah,
Parked
thank
right
you.
behind Tiger Stadium.
Yeah, I was about to say, not too much of a walk for you, so that's the
Not
good
at all.
part. But let's talk some baseball. I know you had yourself a busy weekend, obviously. But let's talk about LSU's baseball weekend. Jay Johnson and the Tigers earned a sweep this past weekend against the North Alabama team, much better than their record says, especially when you look at how close they played Tennessee and Auburn. And so Jared Jones had himself a weekend as well as another great weekend from the pitching staff itself. So let's talk about that. As a whole, the LSU pitching staff did an incredible job of limiting those runs this weekend. And I think the most notable, obviously, goes to Anthony Ianson. 7 innings, striking out 15, and only those 2 runs in the first inning and just nothing else for the rest. So my first question just for y'all both was just how huge was this for him, this performance going forward, not only into SEC play, but what kind of changes did you see from the beginning of the season in his starts to this one in particular?
I mean, I just think it's a confidence builder. I think that's the main importance of it all is because, you know, the fact that you're able to go that distance, the 7 innings, you know you can do it, and then being able to go out there and do it in a game where, you know, you don't necessarily need to is very, very important, especially for a guy like Anthony.
Yeah, good confidence boost. He's a guy that's known to be really strong mentally, and he's shown that a couple times now. I mean, against Nebraska, it's kind of tough to go out there and give up 5 runs in the first couple innings.
Right.
But from there, he continued pitching. He pitched his way out of that. Him getting to the 6th, 7th inning in that game was huge because they were kind of in a rough spot bullpen-wise because they used a lot of guys against Dallas Baptist and Kansas State. So he might have that rough start, but when we talked to him after, I think it was that game he just had, or one of his recent starts, I don't know. He said that, no, it was that Nebraska game. He said that when he's out there pitching, if something bad happens in an inning, he doesn't even remember that. Like, he's so locked into the next 3 outs he's got to get, the next couple of pitches he's got to throw. And I don't know if he's maybe just saying that to say that or if he actually believes it, but his actions would back that up because he could give up 3 runs in 1 inning, come back out of the dugout, and put up 3 strikeouts and just keep moving and grooving. I did take a couple specific notes on the Nebraska start, this past start, some of the differences. He had 3 runs in the first inning he gave up to the Cornhuskers, and that portion of the game, I noticed he was leading on some counts. But Nebraska had some good pieces of hitting.
They tagged him up in those first few innings, They
were getting high. They were going low. Really, just I would tip by cap to Nebraska in that first inning. They're a good team.
They're a good team. Yeah. They're Big Ten favorites, I want to say. So
at least top 3.
For sure.
And then Cade Aaron-Beatty was catching, and he's had his struggles here in a couple of starts in terms of stopping pitches. He's just a freshman, so that didn't help. They had a lot of pass balls that allowed Nebraska to get some runs, guys in scoring position, things like that. But kind of the point is he's a confident guy. I've spoken with his dad. He's always kind of just been a straight-line dude on the mound. You need that as a starting pitcher, and Jay Johnson looks for that. North Alabama, kind of the same thing. Just good hitting, I think, in that first inning. Some guy, Ianson likes to throw off speed inside and handcuff guys, and some dude turned around on it, just got it inside the third base bag there, and that ended up scoring a guy from first base.
Yeah, it felt like a lucky guess on that one.
It was. I think it was. And then after that, they had a defensive shift where they hit a single through where typically Stephen Milam would be. So kind of just one of those things.
Unlucky, it was just a kind of unlucky
The shift works sometimes, doesn't work other times. And Luis Hernandez was catching in that game as well. So I think it was great for Ianson. 15 Ks, most since Ty Floyd, I think, in the
College World Series final, 17.
So that was huge. And he's earned his Saturday job, and he deserves to keep it.
I agree. And I think, early, and I'm not even saying it as it was a problem, but he had a problem of just falling behind in counts, right? That was he couldn't get ahead in the counts in those early starts, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think it was just the first 3 innings he struggled to get ahead, and that's why he ran into some trouble. And I think that's a reason why Nebraska kind of tagged him up a little bit. They got the hitters count, they guessed on him, but it's huge for him to have that kind of performance against North Alabama because, like both of y'all said, I mean, he has the stuff to go out and do that on a weekly basis, right? Like he has the stuff. You've seen it. That curveball is so hard to hit just in general. And so if he's executing his pitches like he did this week, LSU's going to be completely fine, especially him going forward. But the pitching was phenomenal all weekend and really all season so far. But the relief guys got it done, right? Who caught y'all eye specifically this weekend in the pen?
You want to go first?
Well, there weren't many of them.
Yeah, that's the
right.
They weren't
there.
pitching,
Yeah, there was not that many.
There were certain games where they were really only throwing 2 to 3 guys in total.
Yeah.
And so I think that itself speaks numbers because if you're able to go into a game like a North Alabama, North Dakota State, whatever it is, and you're not having to use all these guys in the bullpen, especially when you've got Missouri coming up in a week or this week. But then you've got that. It's good for Jay Johnson. And you talked earlier about getting into those counts. Jay preaches about getting that early count, making sure that you're ahead always, because that's what really wins those battles in the pitching department. Yep. And so I really think it wasn't necessarily what I saw from the relief guys. It's just the fact that I didn't see them was really, really good.
That's what impressed you. Yeah.
Well, they had to reset the bullpen because they had 5 games last week.
Yeah,
exactly.
5 more this week.
So that was huge, honestly.
Yeah. So we only saw 2 Friday starters and guys out of the pen. I think it was Anderson and Rizzi, and then 2 more on Saturday, Ianson and Cowan, and then Sunday, you're winning.
It's a blowout, right?
Yeah. So
you're testing
guys,
yeah.
Which you need to do. 2 guys that caught my eye, though, definitely Zach Cowan. LSU has an embarrassment of riches from a starting standpoint. A lot of teams don't have a Sunday starter, but LSU has Chase Shores because of the injury and everything. And he's a guy that could easily be a Friday starter at many
somewhere
other
else,
places. If not LSU, if things were different, But Cowan from Wofford was a starter there, pitched a lot, pitched multiple times a week. He could be a Sunday guy, theoretically, if LSU doesn't have a Chase Shores. They have him as a guy out of the bullpen. He's almost like your Griffin Herring from last year.
And he could even be a Tuesday guy if you didn't have Schmidt.
So it's another
Connor Ware.
And so it's like it's just one of those things where it's like you come to a place that this pitching staff is just so deep and could be so consistently good. It's like, and Rizzi's one for that. Jay loves Rizzi.
Yeah,
he absolutely loves him. And there's good reason for it because he can go in for that 1 inning and throw the exact same that Chase Shores is throwing. And he hit 99 on his first pitch. Yeah. And so that's something that really strikes your eye from a relief.
He's also just intimidating. Watching speaking of just somebody that has played baseball, when you watch somebody that's 6'9" go up to the mound and throw 97, 98 consistently, you're like, this is gonna be a long day.
That's a presence.
Right. But Cowan, I also had Cowan just because he showed so much poise, and not only just last weekend, but the entire season, right? Jay has trusted him a lot in those situations. But, John, you saw him last year in Chapel Hill, and he showed the same poise. He almost beat LSU pretty much single-handedly until they went to the pen, I think, on that Friday game, right?
I don't know if he pitched against LSU.
I do think he did.
Did he? Okay.
Yeah.
He may have.
Yeah, and so he had that LSU offense, like I'm telling you. They were in shambles. And then LSU, beat Wofford when they went to the pen. But
was this the second game they played?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And so I'd say he's just been impressive. And just the way that he doesn't mess around with hitters. You have a lot of pitchers that like to waste pitches. Cowan is mature and he knows what hitters go after. He doesn't mess around with those batters, which is huge because he's a guy that can go for long relief. Not only in these short innings, right? But somebody if Cade Anderson doesn't have his best outing or Ianson doesn't have his best outing, they can go eat up a good bit of innings, right? He has the starting experience where he can drag that pitch count, right?
Exactly.
So that's really huge for them. But Tigers scored 13 runs in the first game, 6 in the Saturday game, and 11 yesterday, right? It feels like this offense is starting to fix some of those scoring, runners in position issues that they struggle with early on. But what's something that you took away from the Tigers' bats this past weekend?
I think that's kind of still a problem for them, especially bases loaded.
Yeah.
I think there's still some things to be desired in those situations. Like they've had some times where there's been 2 runners on, 2 in scoring position, no outs, and they find a way to come away with no runs.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure if it's approach or what it might be, but that's something that I think still needs to get cleaned up. But they're putting up a lot of runs. They're doing it in a lot of different ways. I think what stuck out to me about this weekend in particular was we finally saw some of that power. And I think it's always been there, but the weather hasn't cooperated. You know, the wind's been blowing in. It's been really cold. You thought there would be some power in this lineup. You just hadn't really seen it yet.
Yep.
You know, you saw it some in Texas because down there the conditions were a little more favorable. And I asked Jay Johnson this. You know, I'm sure he sees it in batting practice. I'm sure he sees it in practice. But it's one thing to do it then and to actually do it in the game and see it happen.
Right.
So it was nice to see Luis Hernandez go yard. Like I went to almost all the preseason scrimmages, and this guy hit 23 bombs at Indiana State. I didn't see a
He's a
single
power
home
guy,
run.
yeah.
So it was nice to finally see that. Jared Jones is back to, doing his deal. I know this team's not going to hit as many home runs as they did last year, but you still need to have an element of power to your game. We saw a lot of that.
And they have it. I mean, look at Daniel Dickinson. He's a guy that's really little, still able to launch at heights, right? And even Josh Pearson is a really small frame guy, was able to, power through.
And that leads me, like, one thing that really stood out to me the most, and I've talked about it since the beginning, is just the depth. Because, like, you're able to bring a guy who is a true freshman, who's a really good hitter, in John Pearson, and you throw him in the game, and then first pitch, bang.
That was insanely cool.
And that's just one of those things where it's like, you're not finding that in other places. You know what I mean? Like, maybe in some other top programs,
right?
But at your normal college baseball program, you're not throwing in a guy off the bench and then get
420.
Yeah, like that's not happening. And then there's another instance where he throws him in the second game. It was the second game. And they throw him in and he gets a single. He gets a little short single, and then they take him out right away, and they pinch run. And it was a closer game in that second game, and that really struck my eye a little bit, just because it caught my eye. Just because, why are you bringing in this true freshman to get on base just to take him out? Because he's that good of a hitter. And then and he's on your bench. So that means you have all these other guys that are just as good of hitters. So that's the thing is and you said the weather, the conditions, the pieces are going to fall together come SEC ball. And that's just how it is.
Yeah, it's just March at this point.
Exactly. So, I mean, that's the real thing, is just seeing the guys on the bench that are able to do all of those. You know what I mean? Like that was the real thing that caught my eye. Yeah,
and I thought LSU did a better job of getting runners across, right? But I saw more patience in their at-bats. You didn't see a lot of them. And this happened, I want to say, earlier in the week against North Dakota State. They were swinging at pitches that weren't great, but it was early in the counts. And so I think what Jake kind of wanted them to do was see a few more pitches in the at-bat, and it obviously paid off for them this weekend. But any other takeaways from this weekend, just in general?
I want to add on about the at-bats. And you talked about Luis. There was an instance in Luis in the game that he hit the home run. His first at-bat of the game, it was a 3-pitch strikeout. Foul ball, strikeout.
Yep.
And I was up top in the booth, and the guy was sitting next to me, and he was like, that might have been one of the worst at-bats I've ever seen. and I was like, I was thinking to myself, and then I looked down over to the dugout, and I see Jay with his hands in his head, and that just made, and I was like, it's all coming together, because
he didn't want that.
Yeah, he didn't want that. And then he goes later and he hits a home run in a good at bat. I think it was like a 6-pitch at bat where he hit the home run, and that's the stuff that you're looking for. And so I think early in the season, it's okay to have those little mishaps, especially when you see later in the game them. Because I think it's all improvement, and they're improving as these innings goes on, and that's the cool thing.
You have any other takeaways from this weekend? I mean, there was a few for sure.
Yeah, I think another thing that stuck out to me, I thought Cade Arambidi did a much better job.
Much better
behind the plate for sure
this weekend, and he needs to be a guy they can rely on, because Luis Hernandez is their guy.
But you got to give him time. You got to be able.
And not only that, but
game.
Cade has the ability to go in on a weekend where. You make a good point, because, like you said, if you clutch a series in those first 2 games, you want to keep Luis fresh, right? You want to keep him fresh. Shoot, he gives you just as much, a good chance to win, right, on those Sunday games. Why not throw him in? And for his development, for sure, because this is a guy that should have won in the draft last year, right? So you make a really good point there.
Yeah, no,
sure.
he's a beast. But that's the thing is it's gotta be not perfect, but almost perfect behind the plate because those mistakes aren't gonna be friendly when conference ball comes around.
You can't be a negative defensively. That's kind of your job as a catcher. And whatever offense you can provide is great. And Aaron Beatty can provide offense. Right. He was a double machine in preseason. He hit a home run against North Dakota State on the day where he was struggling, so it kind of made up for some of those errors that he made. He's got that potential. So if he can continue to grow and develop and be someone they can use to keep Hernandez fresh and healthy because, catching a lot of games, which he will.
It takes a toll.
Taking more at-bats. He didn't do that last year. He was a strictly DH guy at his previous school, and now he's doing both again, which is difficult. But it seems like he kind of got off to a rough start, but now he's getting better and better. His average is creeping up. He's starting to hit home runs. He's being more patient at the plate, things like that. So I think that's something that stuck out. And third base, Tanner Reeves. I think he started 3 straight games all weekend.
3 straight, and he looked phenomenal.
Yeah, that's the other thing. You got Braswell coming off the bench. That's what I mean.
It doesn't worry me because I think Braswell is going to be useful down the stretch in SEC play.
Super useful.
It's better to struggle now than later, right? And that's what they always say in baseball. And it's really weird because I don't know what's been wrong with his approach at the plate. I don't know if he hasn't seen enough pitches. But in fall ball, I want to say that he was one of the best hitters in fall ball. So, I mean, you kind of hope that he is on the field for you just because of that experience, right? He has the SEC starts. He was your best SEC hitter on the team last year in conference play.
Yeah,
people don't realize, LSU wasn't, in the greatest position last year as far as, the bats went. But my takeaway from this weekend was Josh Pearson. Yeah. If he can be that consistent for this team, they're going to be Omaha bound because there's so many other guys that you can rely on, right? Like Derek Curiel he's going to be that guy all season. Yeah. Like I can tell you, there's not going to be, if there is a drop off, it's not going to be much. And Jared, you're going to see the same thing from Jared. You're going to see the same thing from Dickinson, if not better in SEC play. And like down the line, after those guys, you need the Josh Pearsons. You need Jake Brown to step up. You need all of those guys.
You do. You do.
And they preach this team has depth. They have to prove it every single weekend, and or not. You have the option to go to other guys like you said, like Larson or somebody else, Fry. But like I said, I think we'll see how that transitions into SEC play because SEC ball is just a different beast. Right. And a lot of those newcomers, especially those JUCO guys, not only pitching but hitting, they're going to see that. Especially, that first series, I want to say they won't really see it this weekend because of Mizzou. They'll see it against Texas, though.
Yeah.
So as SEC play begins, they're going to start next week, right, with a Missouri team that definitely is struggling to find their identity. So just kind of moving into SEC play, what do the LSU bats and offense have to, continue to improve on against them in particular?
I think they're doing a great job, but certainly when you have opportunities to strike, you got to take advantage because, you might leave a couple guys on base against North Alabama, but you got 7-8 more innings to score runs, and you're going to score them eventually. Take their pitcher out of the game. They have to go to their bullpen. I mean, you're going to get to them eventually. But SEC teams, that's not going to happen. And defensively, they made some mistakes too, drop fly balls. You'll see more athletic outfielders, more athletic infielders make some plays and record some outs that haven't been outs, which is giving you more opportunities to score runs. Mm-hmm. So basically, these teams are going to be just like yourself. They don't like to make mistakes. The team that makes more mistakes is going to lose. So just kind of tighten things up. Yeah. Cleaner base running,
that's another thing.
There's been some overstepping, getting caught stealing, squeezing. They haven't executed perfectly.
Yeah, the bunning.
Some different stuff.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
The bunning, and this is, a Jay Johnson baseball coach team, so they're not used to bunting a lot, right? But if they do need a bunt, certainly this is a team where you think this is one that will have runners in scoring positions a lot.
Yep.
They're going to have to do a better job of advancing the runners.
Some guys are better than others.
Yeah.
But top to bottom, I'd say the execution with that hasn't necessarily been great. So they're doing a great job. They're scoring a lot of runs.
Yep.
Continue that plate discipline. That's been their key to success. There's a lot of guys walking.
Mm-hmm.
Forcing them to make
mistakes.
And
that's what I was going to say, just that plate discipline, and also just, like attacking in that first inning. getting to the pitcher, making them throw a lot of pitches, fighting through counts, and if you're able to make that first inning go for 20 minutes, 25 minutes, whatever it is,
that's huge.
It's big. And this is a team that can do that. And because you have those first 6 guys, and if they can all start hot, it's going to be a long day for pitchers, especially Missouri.
It's like a murderer's row.
I agree. Yeah, I think it's finding that that fine line, right, between decisiveness but aggression when you're at the plate, right? Like, I think my favorite kind of saying was when Trey Morgan was here. He would say, "My goal at the plate is to hit a strike very hard," and it sounds so simple, but he did such a great job of doing that. You didn't really see Trey Morgan swing at a lot of trash, right? He was a guy that hit for contact, but he swung at really, good pitches, right? And so you want to see guys do that and do it successfully. But with your starters pretty set, right? I kind of want to ask you guys just who is going to be, more roles-wise, right? Like a first relief guy moving into the SEC, and then who those relief guys you think Jay is going to start to rely on more now that conference play is kind of began, to where, even your better pitchers you might not see, during the midweek, sort of like Schmidt right now.
Yeah.
If you kind of see him, do you see him kind of keeping that role, or
who, Schmidt?
Yeah.
Schmidt keeping
or just in general, any of those guys, like who's your first relief? Do you see Schmidt coming into that relief role?
Yeah, I think Kason Evans is your best guy out the pen. I know you want to keep him as your closer or whatever, but obviously that's your best guy out the pen. I said it earlier, Jay loves Rizzy. He's mentioned it. Rizzy will get innings in big-time games in these SEC plays. You will see him a lot. And I think that Schmidt, if he wasn't, I think Schmidt would also be a really good piece in the bullpen, but he's giving you great innings right now in that Tuesday spot. So, but we see it every year. Lineups change, roster spots change. Like, it all changes, especially with Jay Johnson's teams. But I think that you have a solid row of 4 guys that you know that you
which is really
in.
solid.
Yeah,
especially counting that starting. Anderson's got the longevity. Ianson definitely has the longevity, and so does Shores. At the end of the day, his pitch count has probably been the highest of those 3 guys.
Right.
Yeah, the innings haven't matched that, but he touched 94, I think, yesterday. So, yeah, to me right now they've got 8.5 guys.
Yep.
Where if you were going to the College World Series today, I think Jay would rely on it. And I know half is weird. I'll explain that. Obviously, you got Anderson, Ianson, Shores. You've got Connor Ware, William Schmidt. So that's like your 5 starters that have been the starters to this point. Cowan out of the pen, Kason Evans out of the pen. Connor Benj out of the pen. And then Guidry's the half because he's injured right now.
Yep.
But we know what he can do. But we also don't know what his role is going to be still if he's going to be a starter.
I was going to say Guidry, but...
Yeah.
And Jay likes Primo a lot, too.
He does, but DJ, he's come into the game and he's walked guys, he's hit guys, just the command's not necessarily there. So to me,
for sure,
Kason Evans, certainly, late game, he could probably give you 3 innings, I bet, because he was a starter in high school if you wanted him to.
Could.
You don't really need him to, I don't think. But it's either Zach Cowan or Connor Benj is your top reliever right now. Benj, kind of early in the season, was the guy that Jay knew could get outs, but he's also had some up and down spots recently where he's come in and walked some guys. Like Sam Houston, I think he kind of struggled.
He did.
But that was also like his second appearance of the week, if I'm not mistaken, if not third. Cowan, though, has been nails every time. So to me, if it's a Friday, you're playing, I don't know, Texas in 2 weeks. It goes Anderson, you hope for 6 or 7, and then Cowan possibly gives you the rest. If not him, though, Kason comes in and gives you.
I was about to say, and it's going to be hard to beat LSU, not only just on Friday, but Saturday, too.
And Sunday.
Sunday, too, for sure. But those 2 games, just imagine facing that pitching, and it doesn't end here.
So you just can't fool around in the midweek. So, I mean, Schmidt's been your Wednesday guy. You don't have Wednesday games. So somebody's moving. Ware or Schmidt to the bullpen. Between those 2. Maybe, based on what you got coming up, matchup-wise, you want a lefty or a righty, you put one on one weekend, one on the other.
You're right.
So, yeah, I mean, that's great. I mean, they got 5 really good starters that have all shown some good stuff.
And I agree with you. I said I think Cowan is your first relief guy for sure, option. And I think he's going to be, utilized more in those longer inning situations, right? Whether that is, 2 innings, right? Or they might break it up. Like, how Jay is. Jay likes a different look. Say Anderson goes 6, right? You want Cowan to go 2. He'll go 2, but he might also be able to go 2 on Saturday too.
Exactly. He might do Friday,
right.
Sunday.
Exactly, or Sunday, right? And you'll see Evans, hit up 1 inning. Oh, he can do it again Saturday. Yeah. They're going to keep going to that, right? And both, I don't think they're going to have an issue with pitching guys multiple times in a weekend, just because
they can handle it. Yeah.
Exactly. And my thing is, I don't think their count's going to get to that point. Right. But
I know I've said his name a lot, but Rizzi is
Rizzi
is somebody that you just
I think Rizzi will get there
because he can give you that 1 inning of pure fast pitching. Say you're in the 7th,
I agree.
and you've already had one pitcher.
You need
got
clean
some off speed. Yep. Boom, you just get a lot of speed in there, and then take him out. He can then go on Sunday, Saturday, whatever you need him to do.
Jay said he's going to lead the team in appearances. Out of
Rizzi, and like you said, that would be a great thing, and it would be great to counter Cowan, because Cowan's not a velo guy at the end of the day.
Exactly.
He's a pitch for weak contact, right?
Having that 1-2 punch is really
it's killer, right? And Kaysen does the same thing. He's up to 96, 97. So another guy that impressed me yesterday, Jaden Newt.
Yeah, I wrote that down too.
I think Jaden Newt showed that he could eat up some innings. I think it's going to be that Sunday role. Whether that's first out the pen on Sundays, or I also think Dalton Beck, the way that he's being used right now is a little weird. I don't really expect him to get many more at bats down the line. I think he's going to be primarily used more as a pitcher, just because LSU is not lacking left-handed arms, but you want more left-handed arms available when you want those matchups.
I think they're still trying to figure out what to do with him, because he led the Southland Conference in home runs, and hits, RBI,
it's like
all these things.
It's like a Paul Skeens situation. Like, where do you put him at this point?
Good to see him get in, though. And Chandler Dorsey had some good moments.
Yes.
I think right now they're still trying to see what they got back there. And they have a lot of options, but as I said before, you want to get to 10, maybe 12 guys. Right now they're at 9-ish.
Yeah, and you'll get to Guidry. Like you said, Guidry, he's got the ability, right?
Gets back out there
and
exactly. Pitches. I'm not sure what's going on with that. I know it's an injury, but
and
they're not saying a whole lot.
Not really.
Not saying a whole lot, which is not great. But they said Kendall Rogers reporting he might be. I'm expecting they rest him for Mizzou. You don't need him. Yeah. Get him back during the midweek of Texas week. Yeah. And if he's feeling good, probably don't let him pitch that weekend, the weekend after. Just baseball is a thing where you never want to chance it. But
you don't want to rush him.
I feel like I mean Schmidt. I think Schmidt's going to go into that Sunday role of relief, or Saturday, even if
I could see, because the thing with Shores for me is his speed is great. His speed's amazing. It's just his movement has been a little bit off on his pitches. His off speed hasn't really been there, and that could come to bite him in the end. And that's where you could see like a guy like Schmidt coming in and maybe taking that role, just because he's been really good. I don't know. Schmidt's thing though is his fastball is super flat and his curveball is unbelievable.
Yeah.
So it's like you've got two different things.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so just moving on, really quick one. Do you guys kind of expect the same lineup moving into Mizzou? And who are some, if you do see any changes, what are those changes?
Do you think we're going to see Reeves? That's what I was going to.
Yeah, I think it's matchup based. I think you've certainly locked in like 6 or 7 guys you're going to see every day. Curriel, Jones, Dickinson, Hernandez, Milam. Stanfield, Brown, I think, is locked in. Larson struggled, so I think Brown's locked in.
Yeah.
I think those outfielders, at least to start the game. They've kind of been taking them out after the 6th or the 7th. But I think the only changes you'll see are based on the pitching or the matchup. If it's Josh Pearson or Ethan Fry DHing, Pearson's played in the field. And then at third base, if it's Braswell or Reeves, I was looking forward, not like in the sense that like I was anticipating, but I was curious to see who would start at third after I asked Jay on Friday night, I think it was, if he's hoping someone steps up and grabs a starting job at third. He said no. They're platooning right now, and he's fine with that. They both bring things to the table. So.
Yeah, the only thing I worry about that is that does a lot mentally. And I know this sounds kind of like a little kiddish, but like baseball is a game of runs, right? Or hot streaks, right? Like, taking a guy out when he's hot, like Reeves right now, I don't know how much that would do for his confidence or just his ability going forward. I think you have to keep him in there until he until he shows you he can't, right? I think
struggling, man.
Yeah,
and I agree.
Yeah,
Michael is struggling right now.
And I think that's the thing is because Jay loves Braswell. He loves him.
For sure.
And I think that's what's kind of killed because he wants to play him really badly, but you bring in Reeves for that certain reason. You know what I mean? And Reeves told us he's played everywhere. He can play all over on the field and third base, but he's fine. Isn't this his first year playing third?
Yeah, he was more of a second baseman.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean,
I thought he's done a good job with glove
he's
too.
Good with the bat. Defense is coming along, but Braswell is probably the better defender, but he doesn't have the bat.
He doesn't have the bat at all. So
you wish you could mix the two together.
Yeah, for
but
sure.
I think you got to keep putting Braswell in because he's done it before. He did it last
That's
year.
what I'm saying.
At some point, it's going to click.
I would not mind though if Braswell turned into that 9-hole guy, because I think he could, if he starts to get his bat to where it was last year, like because his bat last year was the best it's been in his college
career. Yeah.
So if it gets to around that point last year and you put him in that 9 spot, that creates a little bit of danger for pitching when you've got him at the 9 and then you go right to Curiel,
right?
All those guys.
And I think that they feel that way about Stanfield right now. But Stanfield's been stellar, man. And I will say I expected him to be good, like in that 9-hole, but he's been perfect. Way better than I thought.
Perfect. Flipping it right. It's
like,
almost as if he's an extension of the leadoff guy. He's leading off from the
yes, exactly.
You know what I mean?
So that's pretty much all I didn't. I think I have the Reeves stuff too, but I expect him to start this weekend. But let's look ahead just a bit. On the future for this team. Let's talk about college baseball as a whole right now. Obviously, a lot of controversy. About the rankings and Tennessee. And those LSU fan bases kind of going at. I don't think Tennessee fans realize that it's just March, right? And it's still super early. But who do you think deserves that one spot as of right now? And obviously it doesn't matter, but who do you think it is, just to kind of stir up a little conversation here?
I don't know. Like you said, I don't think it really matters that much right now. But Tennessee started the year number 1, right? Or whatever. And I looked at their schedule. They've played some decent teams. Like Oklahoma State was ranked, Arizona was ranked, and they beat everybody else. LSU has likewise done that, besides losing to Omaha. So I don't know. I think Tennessee 1, LSU 2. I mean, you could do the eye test thing, but they both have some decent wins, and Tennessee's been crushing the baseball, defending national champs as well. So I think you just give them the nod, and who cares,
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like,
you're going to play in April and solve it then.
Yeah.
And
not only that, you're going to play each other probably in the SEC and in Omaha.
Yeah. So it doesn't matter at all right now. Coaches don't care at all right now. I promise you, Jay does not care one bit about what the ranking is right now in March. Right. And I think that's the big thing is like, if these coaches don't really care, why should
your fan base?
How
I know, but you know what I mean. You know what I'm saying?
Like, I know. I agree with you.
It's like one of those things, like just like it's baseball. It's not like football where it's like a 12-week season and one game decides everything.
Yes,
it's
for sure.
It's like a long
things
process.
Change, they ebb and they sow.
I mean, like, look, all unbiased aside, I'd probably give it to Tennessee, right, just because of. Like you said, just the fact that they haven't lost a game, cool, right? And statistically, I'll say yes, they're mashing the hell out of the ball right now. But that's not how baseball rankings rank.
Everything, but
that's what I'm saying. Like, that's not how baseball rankings work, right? And you would think that a program like Tennessee, would know that by now, but no one really jumps anyone unless they lose a series, and that's always how baseball rankings have been, right? And so LSU wasn't going to get jumped because of that Omaha loss. That's just not how it goes. A&M didn't even drop really that much when they lost, I want to say 2 games in Houston, right? They really dropped when they lost the midweek, and then I think they lost one against New Mexico the other day. So that's when you really drop.
We have that in common. Couldn't beat New Mexico State on my dynasty.
This is true. I witnessed that firsthand. But I think I'd give them the nod. But like you said, it means nothing right now.
LSU was second in the country after basically all the pre-conference, non-conference stuff.
Right.
And then they were 3-12 in SEC play. It just does not matter.
It doesn't matter.
You don't know what this team's made of until you get to those Sundays. those Fridays, those Saturdays, and you see teams make mistakes, you see teams lose, and who responds to adversity well. I mean, that's kind of how baseball is. It's a long season. There's three games in the weekend, one in the midweek, and the good teams will sustain losses and sustain things not going their way and consistently find answers to win. And the teams that aren't good will not.
Yeah.
So it does not
That's a
matter.
great point.
And literally, like all those good teams like that are good right now. That's what this conference play is all about. Is picking out the weak links. So
yeah, and so like as of today, right, still way too early. But where would you see LSU finishing in this SEC with what you've seen? Obviously, there's so many teams. I think 12 of the 14 SEC teams are in the poll this week. Insane, by the way. That's half of the damn. That's literally half of the
That's how
poll.
it is. Why Jay speaks so highly, and he has no regrets about what he says at the podium. You know,
Yeah.
SEC's the best conference. End of statement. You know, whatever. I think LSU's certainly in the upper echelon because I think these Sundays are really going to be key. Like last year, they were the Achilles heel for this team.
Yes.
They couldn't win a game on Sunday,
And I think,
that makes a big difference.
Yeah.
This year, I think they're going to win a lot more of those Sundays just based on the personnel they have, the depth that they have, and the talent that they have. And that's going to separate them from being, a middle of the pack team to being a good team because they're going to take 2 out of 3 more often than not.
No, this team is talented, man. Like it's just pure talent. So I think that they are. I'd say just based off of what I see, I could see them fit at like 1 or 2. It's just based off that.
Yeah, I could see it.
But like you just said, we don't know what we're gonna see until we get those
Right.
first those first 2 weekends.
Not only that,
For SEC play is really going to be the big eye-opening. See what those first 2 Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays are like, and how they approach it and how they respond is really what we're going to see.
not only that, but it's going to be also the way you close. I think you close with Tennessee. I think you close with Arkansas and A&M.
It's kind of flipped
all
from
three.
last year. It was really hard at the beginning.
Which I don't know how you look at that, but
And South Carolina, too.
Yeah,
I like
exactly.
it.
And South
Yeah.
Carolina.
Yep.
I like that. Yeah, I like
because by then you should be playing your best.
That's what I'm saying. You should be playing your best baseball, and that's when you really know what you have from your guys, right?
Exactly.
But I'll say LSU finishes top 3, 4, just because you never know, right? Like you never know. If there was a reason Gavin Guidry couldn't come back, that's one less arm for this LSU team. I'm just kind of factoring
There's
that
question
in,
marks.
right?
Yeah.
Like that there's still parts of LSU where you don't feel confident about just because the stranding based run, and that's every team right now. But look at the talent from top to bottom. You have Tennessee, LSU, Arkansas. I think Florida rounding out like the top 5 or something like that.
Man.
Just insane. Florida, even Alabama this year has looked insane with Justin LeBron, I think his name is, or something like that.
Yes.
But I'll say LSU gets definitely one of those top 4 seeds in the SEC tournament come May. But
I think that's fair.
do you expect to see this team in Omaha? I mean,
I do.
like I said, it's early, but
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I mean, I've said this from the
we've-
beginning. Unless something goes wrong, another injury or something, that's the only thing that's keeping only thing that's keeping this team away from Omaha is this team.
Right.
That's the only thing.
I agree.
I think Jay learned a lot from last year's
Yes.
team, and he keeps kind of every so often hinting at the fact that he felt pigeonholed. He didn't have a lot of options.
Yep.
There were not a lot of avenues to win baseball games outside of what he had, so it was kind of just roll out there and roll with what you got. This year, it seems like they can win a game in so many different ways.
Yeah,
the
last
starters
year-
can dominate. You get help from the bench, offense, whatever.
Last year mirrored his first year at LSU, where they lost to Southern Miss in that regional, where you just straight up didn't have the amount of arms to go. Like I think they were pitching, and no hate to him, but they were pitching Trent Vittmeyer, right? Like on the Sunday games, and anybody that knows Tiger baseball is like Trent Vittmeyer is either great or not as great. But I do expect this team in Omaha, like you said, the depth, pitching wise, and arms are gonna matter way more down the stretch than I think batting will. The quality of arms is gonna matter in Omaha. But who would you say for the MVP for this team is just like through the non-conference? I said Derek Curiel, man. Just the way
That's
that
a good. I mean,
the way that his ability to get on base, just to get on base, really is it doesn't go unsung, right? Because everybody knows he's that good.
yeah.
But it extends innings, right? It extends those runs where you get an opportunity for either Dickinson or Jared Jones to go up to the plate, and those are two great hitters.
Right.
I don't think there's anything that quality itself of having a guy like that.
And he's good defensively.
That's what I'm saying. You take that away, and I don't think this team is as great.
I was watching the UNC LSU game, the last game of the season last year.
Mm-hmm.
They have Tommy White leading off. Is that right?
They did it a while. They did it a good bit.
I think Tommy White led off in that game, and
Well,
he is not a guy.
He's not a guy you
that
want
should
to
be
lead
leading
off.
I don't.
There's your 3-hole or
Right.
or your
Like he
4.
should be.
2 or 3.
He's not a leadoff guy. I don't think they had that last year. So Curiel has been huge for them, just getting on base consistently. Like I feel like every time I'm going back and cutting the footage and whatever, walk. And, but he also can double, and he's hit a home run, and he hits singles. He runs the bases really well. He just does a lot of things. He has a lot of intangibles you may not notice. And he's super mature too.
Yeah.
Like you talk to him, like he's like a 25-year-old.
Yeah, and
Comes
it's
from a great family.
and it's all about baseball for him.
Yeah.
And that's the thing that when
That's
you
the
see
Jay Johnson guy.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
you
for sure.
see a kid like him, and it's like, all right, yeah, he plays for Jay Johnson's baseball team because of the way he carries himself and all that.
College stud.
College stud.
Let me. That's a good one. I would go with him, but just to give a counter, Daniel Dickinson. I think he's almost
agree.
leading the team in RBI.
Yes.
He's come up huge for them in some situations. He was the guy that kind of jumped off the page in terms of power early on, hitting some early home runs and things like that. And he's really protected Jared Jones well. Like Jay Johnson said it.
It was the other way around too to start the season off.
Yes.
So they're kind of like playing mismatch at
which is good.
It's great. Yeah.
I think it was the Kansas State game, or maybe it was Nebraska, one of those two. They kind of just blended together. It was really good baseball. When Jay was like, "You want to intentionally walk Jared? Cool." Daniel Dixon got 6 RBI.
Yeah.
Fine with me, essentially.
Yeah.
So he's been great. And defensively, he's been really good, too. That flip play he had with Milam, he's made some other diving plays and such.
Yep.
So really, really good guy. Good hard worker, too, you know.
I agree.
Yeah.
I guess I'll change it up, and I'll just base it off of I'm gonna go Cade Anderson, and just because he has solidified him as the Friday role, he's your number one, and there's no really changing that in my eyes. He's he finally was able to go through the 6 innings, and that was really huge for him. I think that's a big step up, and honestly, I think just being able to have that guy, that number one, is super important, and so I'm gonna give it to Cade.
I love it.
That's a fair pick. And I think it's refreshing and nice that
they're all
every
different.
weekend all right, Cade's Friday, Anthony's Saturday, Chase's Sunday, and there's probably not going to be a lot of debate in that, at least until there's a reason for that. But I feel like last year it was
Who's
Thatcher
pitching?
Hurd. Oh, not Thatcher Hurd.
No, not Thatcher. Yeah, and then you're like,
Every Sunday,
we're gonna throw a pin guy every Sunday.
Exactly.
That's
Who's
like
pitching today?
which one is it?
That was my point. Is just that you're going from a Thatcher Hurd scenario where you think you have this number one, and then games go by, and you're like, wait, he's not a number one, and you have that guy, and that's crucial going into SEC play.
Yep. Well, John, last question, if you have some time still. You've had a lot, you had a lot of time to cover this LSU baseball team, right? 2 years now. I just want to kind of ask you a fun question. What are your kind of favorite moments covering them? I know you have a lot to choose from those first 2 years. Feels like you might be a little bit of a good luck charm to some of them, especially just in those tight games. Like you've covered the Stephen Milam walk-off, right? Like the last weekend or 2 weekends ago in Frisco, that was pretty cool too, right?
Yeah, no, some really good memories. I think baseball related are the best memories I've had thus far. Hoover was super fun. I didn't really know about the whole Hoover thing until I went. I was like, wow, this is awesome.
Yeah.
And they won like every game they played aside from the championship. So that was kind of like a March Madness type run. It was crazy. Specifically at Hoover, definitely the Stephen Milam walk-off. That was fun. Like, we ran onto the field with the team. Jay Johnson came out of the locker room, I guess, because he'd gotten ejected, and that was just so fun. That was hilarious.
He told us that story.
Yeah, that story was awesome,
and it was great. He was like, I called. I
called the president right away.
He was like, I called Montgomery right after, man.
Yes.
And I was like, or Birmingham, sorry.
Yeah.
But thank you for sharing that. That was an awesome weekend. Just in general, you went down 8. I turned the TV off. Like, I think I was on vacation at that point. We were gonna watch the game, and we were like, yeah, let's go do something else. But
Frisco was cool too.
Frisco
When they jumped in the lazy river.
You got Chief jumping in the lazy river.
So Yeski told us, Nate Yeski, their pitching coach, told us in the third inning, hey, you guys are going to want to go to the lazy river later. I was like, what? And he didn't really expound or expand upon that thought. And I was like, okay.
That's awesome.
And then I got wind of the fact that maybe he told me later in the game that Chief said he was going to jump into the lazy river if they swept like he did a couple years ago. So I saw Jared Jones point to the lazy river after they broke down the huddle, and I was like, oh, this is it. They started sprinting to that side of the field. I started sprinting to that side of the field.
And it's raining.
And
right?
So a lot of people had gone in and were waiting for the post-game press conference, but I stayed out there with the rain gear on and breaking more cameras.
Right.
And then, they started jumping in. That was awesome. You could hear it in the video.
That was sick.
I was just laughing.
You saw it was all over social media, so that was pretty cool. So Tiger fans are kind of already seeing how much you've done for the baseball, not only like community, well, I guess I would say community, but also just college baseball in general. Those are some moments that you're just like, wow, this is why college baseball is just so underrated, but it's also growing.
Yeah.
So that's a big deal. But before signing out, I want to remind our viewers and listeners that this week is fundraiser week. Please consider donating to KLSU and helping our college radio station out, and our sports team specifically, Poj, as you can donate by calling 225-578-5578 or by donating on our website at klsuradio.fm. Your donations have helped us tremendously over the years as we've gotten this nice little podcast set up, as Jay would say, calm little podcast.
This doesn't happen without y'all, man.
Yeah,
this
for sure.
does not happen without y'all.
And not only that, but, I've been blessed. KLSU has sent me to cover the Heisman, the Jaden Daniels Heisman, the women's national championship from basketball. So
and
really
got
cool
to cover the bowl games.
Yep, bowl games.
This weekend, or this
past year, yep.
This past year, so.
But, that's going to do it for us today on today's episode. I want to thank John Eads specifically for joining us and spending some time with us here today. Big thank you to Michael Poggi and Jaden Smith, as always. I'm Andre Champagne, and this has been Just